Welcome to the Business Buyer Diaries. My name is Nathan Platter. I'm a full-time employee, and I bought a business. I did everything right, from finding the deal, handling all the due diligence on 63 opportunities, and ultimately bought a profitable gym. And boy, was I in for a big surprise as a new owner. I chronicled everything in real time, including the biggest wins to the stressful nights at 2 a.m. I'm sharing my journey without sugarcoating anything, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Here's today's episode. So a speed tip that I'm learning, we're going back and forth with the bank. So they're asking me to put in more funds and to meet a certain account balance. And I've spent a lot in legal and fees and other costs associated to the project. And they're saying, okay, that's great, but we got to show like the total equity injection in your checking account, which I know I've talked about in the prior episodes, so I won't rehash that. But I realized I was trying to tell them like, hey, I've already paid a lot in costs. Why do I still need to have that full dollar amount? I've already paid a lot. I'm kind of getting thin on cash here. And I realized, okay, obviously what I'm saying isn't coming through and they're not understanding what I'm saying. So instead of just telling them statements and like, it's done, I've paid this, or like leaning forward, if we were like at a table having a conversation and leaning forward and like trying to prove that I'm right, I just need to switch it up. I was banging my head on a brick wall. And so I just said like, hey, my fear is I've paid these certain costs, and by filling the account to the level you want, my fear is that on the closing date, all that cash is going to get swept away and the equity injection is going to take way more cash than I thought because I've put all the money in for the equity injection. Plus I've already incurred other costs, which I thought would go towards the equity injection, like legal fees, franchise fees, associated with the transaction. And so by simply pivoting to saying, hey, my fear is this is going to happen, and then I'm left with only this much on day one for working capital, and my fear is that's going to happen. Do these other costs get used to satisfy the equity injection amount, and I'll have a lot more liquidity? Or we'll just say $25,000, for example. $25,000 in franchise fees and legal fees. Am I going to be left with only a few bucks left, or relatively a few dollars left, because you're going to take all the funds out of the account for the equity injection, and then I'm just kind of a sucker for paying those fees? Or will those $25,000 in business acquisition costs help reduce the amount of cash that is going to get taken for the equity injection, and I'll have $25,000 more of working capital on day one? As a buyer, I don't want to pay more than I have to. So I want to keep every dollar I can and close this deal, but it sounds like they want every dollar in their hands. And so just getting clarification and saying, hey, my fear is this. I think it should actually be this, but I'm wanting to confirm if my fear is real or if we're just miscommunicating. So phrasing in terms of my fear is that this will happen and then that will happen. Then they're able to answer my fear instead of trying to say, well, they're right, why they're right, why I'm right, why I think I'm right. Then they can say, hey, no, your fear is not founded. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be the case. Or they will say, nope, that is a real fear. That is what's going to happen. Then at least we know what we're talking about and being vulnerable. So that's a quick tip, super random, but it's worth noting how to pivot the conversation to get to the answer of what's reality quickly. This has been another episode of the Business Buyer Diaries. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I hope you're realizing that business ownership is no cakewalk. Check the podcast notes for a link to the DIY due diligence program, the complete list of show sponsors, and for media inquiries. Music written and composed by Wes Schrock. I'm your host, Nathan Platter. Join me again on the next one.